There's a biggie bowl game tomorrow between ETSU and Tusculum on the hardwood. Steve Forbes usually joins us, and we're hoping that he will be with us here sometime this week. He's been under the weather, I'm told. You would have thought that ugly sweater kept him warm. I never heard Lou Carnesecca missing games, after he wore a sweater, or interviews, as the case may be. But yeah, Tusculum coming in. And I do want to get in touch with Steve Forbes. We're going to try to have him on here, but I keep getting rebuffed. He's sick, all this. Reach out for Nick Pasqua, Tusculum, see if he might be able to come on in his place. And he is not able to do it today, but we'll keep trying and all that. It's an interesting perspective with Tusculum, because I'm curious how that... I remember once coach at Bluefield College, many years ago, and Bluefield played ETSU. ETSU was had a lousy team, and it was the old mini dome, and there was a snowstorm of the day. I was actually covering it for this radio station. And I remember, ETSU won they were playing Bluefield. They won in a laugher. And talking to the coach, learning about Bluefield, learning things about basketball and people that we both knew people. He actually went there before he went to St. Joe's. Really? I didn't know that, that sort of thing. And he told me that he always wanted to schedule a game like this because it gives my players a chance to play in the big time. And I want you to know the snow had kept all the fans at home. I actually did a 1, 2, 3 in that game. There were 248 people in the stands right before halftime. Okay, at the mini dome, which seats 12,000. So that place was empty. But nevertheless, it was like, no, this is for us, the big leagues. This is, D1 basketball, one of the biggest at the time arenas in college basketball. I believe at the time it was one of the top 50. This is a special treat, even though we kind of know what we're gonna lose, but also we're playing the big boys. This is our date with the homecoming queen. And we're probably not going to wind up marrying her, but we want to have the experience. That sort of thing. And it was brilliant. I'm sure that Tusculum is the same way. I think it's great that ETSU is establishing their brand with Tusculum and Tusculum with ETSU. Creates a lot of interest when otherwise there'd be a lot of interest in high school basketball at this time. No, this is actually establishing both college programs' brand because they got the biggest game going. It counts on the ETSU record. For some reason, it doesn't count on the Tusculum Pioneers record. They're D2. Tusculum struggled a little bit this year. ETSU seems to be hot. Nobody really thinks Pioneers are going to win. But then again, Mr. Jennings took his team to within 5 points of beating ETSU last year. And now he's the head women's basketball coach over in Banner Elk. So things can happen in these games. Chaminade beating Virginia the one time, it does. That's why they play the games. Unlikely, especially with the Bucks' depth, but a fun matchup and also kind of a nice barometer of, okay, what is the difference between D2 basketball and D1 basketball? Is it 40 points? Is it 20? Is it 10? Is it 5? Like last year? Is it doubling the score by 60? We'll find out. I don't know. I usually say college basketball season is meaningless, but this has a local angle. And when I say college basketball, I mean the regular season. And yeah, this one doesn't count on the Tusculum record, but it counts in their experience, in their development as basketball players. Yeah, even the seniors who only have a few games left. It counts. Trust me, it counts. And it's great that ETSU, who went for many years, I believe they went for about 40 years without playing Tusculum and Milligan, that they're playing those games again. Question is, and I'll ask Steve Forbes about this, would we ever see King play ETSU? Still a lot of bad blood there that shouldn't be bad blood. George Pitts, does he think he should have been the ETSU coach? There are some fans around here with low expectations on who ETSU can bring in as a coach. who probably thought so. And again, I've explained many a time that doesn't work. Even Bob McKillop, that doesn't work. He didn't get the ball to Curry with a chance of the Final Four. Ultimately, it doesn't work. Did work for Georgetown, but he had played for the Boston Celtics, for crying out loud. Speaking of John Thompson. Anyway, just a little conversation right there. And hopefully we'll be able to have one of the coaches or a representative of one of the two teams on tomorrow and talk a little bit about this basketball game. I think I think it's great for the area. I think it's the best basketball that's going on in the area, especially when you consider in that basketball tournament up in Bristol that I think is tremendously overrated. How the local team's doing again? How'd Gate City do? How'd Science Hill do? I want to put my eggs in the basket of the big boys. I really do. And ETSU is showing, 8-4 and just coming off a big victory against Georgia Southern, that they could again be a special team in what is shaping up to be a very special era of ETSU basketball. Haven't been nationally ranked in 26 years. Not even ranked right now in the mid-major poll. I think that's an oversight. They're right out, just beneath the 25. They're in the others receiving votes type of thing. But, I think that you'll see the Bucks in the mid-major poll sometime this year. I would love to see many teams, 4, 5, even 6, could happen out of the SoCon in that mid-major poll. And then we can start talking about my dream of the at-large berth. Speaking of ETSU, their football coach is right now in the locker room at a bowl game, Florida, that otherwise you would not watch. Come on, you wouldn't. Who cares? It's a meaningless bowl game, right? We're talking about, the Who Cares Bowl between Florida State and, is this right? Southern Mississippi? Wait a minute, how can that be right? Southern Mississippi lost to Tennessee this year. How is Southern Mississippi in a bowl game? Here is Odell Haggins of the Seminoles.
Guys, we've had a great week of practice. Last couple of days of practice, and I tell you what, the hospitality here, the people, has been great. I've been to a lot of bowls. The people here, they've been great.
Odell Haggins is, and this is going to be the Independence Bowl. Excuse me. Odell Haggins, and this is going to be the Independence Bowl in Shreveport. Got the racetrack down there, Waffle House right next to it. That's Terry Bradshaw's hometown. Shreveport. I mentioned an XFL team in the Tri-Cities. Shreveport once had a World Football League team. Yeah, the Shreveport Steamer. It's basically how Larry King revived his broadcasting career. I don't know if you're aware of this, but yeah, he was a broadcaster for the Shreveport Steamer. After he had been fired in disgrace in Miami, he had relocated to Shreveport, Louisiana. Yeah, Larry King and Shreveport doesn't really mix, but they had a team. He had done some color for the Dolphins back when. Oh, he used to be the color guy for the Dolphins? Yeah, sure, that's a legitimate credential here. Do the Steamers. Obviously, big fish, small pond, WFL. They liked what they heard. King was able to reestablish his career. The rest is history. Anyway, Odell Haggins is the interim coach, which makes you wonder why there couldn't be an interim offensive coordinator, why Randy Sanders can't get right to the duties of coaching ETSU. Perhaps the reason is that the recruiting right now, and I mentioned this with the early recruiting period, that I thought that what you'd see is the big schools gobble up the good players, and they did. And now it's time for whoever has any scholarships left, including the FCS, to say, and this should be, by the way, maxim number 17, I think. I've been discussing the Billsonisms at the beginning of the show. You know what I talk about. You can always find another tackle, the point guard should not be your leading scorer, Oh, they're yelling at the visitors, those things that I say all the time. We put up a list of them. Anyway, the circumstance is that, all right, Jimbo Fisher can leave Florida State and is the coach at Texas A&M right now. Why can't Randy Sanders be the offensive coordinator the head coach of ETSU instead of the offensive coordinator at Florida State right now? In fact, Sanders won't even be on the job officially. He won't be in Johnson City until next year. Starting next year, but nevertheless. Here are my thoughts on that. First of all, like I said, I think that so much of recruiting, especially in the FCS level right now, is a trickle down. It always was. It's just now more apparent. And I think that it actually does help because now the FCS program, which used to go after, say, the blue chipper, saying, well, if it doesn't work out at that big school, we'll be here for you. They now can offer legitimate starting positions saying, you know, that big school you looked at, yeah, they just signed a running back. He's got a few more stars than you. But, you know, you come here, you'll play 4 years. You come to ETSU, we didn't have any running backs this year. Come on. You know, we don't have anybody. You're my guy as a freshman. You'll rush for 10,000 yards if you come here. You know, might be a bit much, 10,000, but you get the point of what I'm saying. So I think that's a reason why Sanders is not in Johnson City right now. And while Florida State has an interim head coach who is happy to be there, they still have their old offensive coordinator that, quite frankly, wasn't all that popular after a 6-6 season in which the Seminoles were ranked number 3 at the start of the year.
It means a lot for the players. It means a lot for the university. And also myself. But the thing about it, you just said something about the winning streaks and all that. I haven't even thought about it. My main concern has been about these guys right here, the whole team.
That is Odell Haggins talking about how much the game means. The game means nothing. Come on, it means if Florida State's going to have a winning record or not. What if Florida State does lose to Southern Mississippi? Team that Tennessee beat by 2 touchdowns with a third-string quarterback. What does that mean? I mean, you know, suddenly then it won't be so great that Randy Sanders is coming in, if that happens, I suppose. I don't know. But no, it's quite the coup. By the way, I did want to mention this. A couple of comments here about Randy Sanders coming in. His contract was released over the weekend, and it's very interesting to me because ETSU is not going to, even if he has every bonus in the contract, and yeah, there are bonuses in that contract that I don't approve of. And I'll tell you what they are here in just a second. I've asked Steve Forbes about this as well, because he has similar bonuses. Now, hold on to this thought. But what about if ETSU under Randy Sanders wins a national championship? Sanders would be up to make about $375,000 from ETSU, if that's the case, with all the bonuses that would kick in. That still won't be the contract that Steve Forbes signed, that Randy Sanders had him sign, that try to keep him to pay as much as ETSU could in the fold in Johnson City for the next several years. Okay. Does that mean basketball is that much more popular or that much more important to ETSU than football? I mean, it has in the past. Maybe. Maybe not. Remember, Sanders, who made approximately $600,000 from his offensive coordinator position at Florida State, and to tell you the truth, that is kind of low for that kind of position, but Florida State will make up the difference. He'll still be making, I think it was $592,000. I'd seen some reports, 602. Let's say 600,000. That extra money, a couple of $100,000, yeah, I could live on it. At least $300,000, $400,000. That'll be paid for the length of the contract that Sanders has at Florida State. This is how he became available to an ETSU. I do say, hey, yeah, look at the coaching hires. Florida State, their offensive coordinator goes to ETSU. Meanwhile, fellow powerhouses, Penn State, their offensive coordinator goes to Mississippi State. Alabama's defensive coordinator, he goes to Tennessee. For that matter, Missouri, although that's not the program of the other three schools that I mentioned. But Missouri, their offensive coordinator is going to Central Florida. However, in the other three cases, their stock is going up. Sanders, he wasn't going to be retained. Stock is going down. Still, it's quite the coup for ETSU. Biggest name hire ever that they've made? Probably not. That's probably still Carl Torbush. He had been the head coach at North Carolina previously. They'd never brought in a coach in any sport who had such a background, such a pedigree. But the offensive coordinator at Florida State, even with his stock declining, not a bad pickup. And yes, a comparable pickup to the hires of both Tennessee and Mississippi State. That's pretty good in my book. Anyway, game's going to kick off again. It's not like Brett Favre is still suiting up for him. It's not like Louis Lips is down there. Southern Mississippi, again, yeah, team that lost to Tennessee this year, they're going bowling. There are too many bowl games. Just not, and I actually heard the most ridiculous thing. The most ridiculous thing. These bowl games are why we need to expand the college football playoff. So you can keep meaningless games alive. So you can have, I've said this, if you went to a 16-team playoff and you played at neutral sites using the bowls, you're going to spread the fan base too thin. It's one thing to be able to afford to go to a bowl game. It's one thing to afford to go to 2 playoff games. And even that's a stretch. It's a whole other thing entirely to say, go to 3 playoff games. Then you're following college football, but you're doing it at the sacrifice of the college education that you would have otherwise saved up for of your children. Hey, I'm Marky Billson. You know what? I do want to talk a little bit more about football, and I do want to talk a little bit more about the SEC is going to be playing. And maybe this says that the SEC is still, and I think it is, the most respected conference. Hey, they're the only conference of 2 teams in the college football playoff. Yeah, I know. It was the ACC that was better last year with a 10-4 head-and-head record. There's some that are saying a Pac-10. They're going to have to look at the bowl games and keep up with that. It is a good barometer on what the better conferences are, especially now that we don't have the blue-gray game to determine whether the North or the South has the better football players in that year, right? At least on the lousy teams. Tri-City Sports Now continues after this.
GMC. It means trust.